Hi, today we're going to discuss about our second chapter of Flamingo, which is Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood. So this video would be recorded in English language. So if you're expecting a video that should be explained in the Hindi language, please go to my channel, to the home page, then go to the playlist, go to the 12th CBSC, and there you would find the videos which are explained in Hindi language as well. Thank you. So this chapter is written by Anis Jung. She is an Indian author, journalist and columnist for newspapers in India and abroad as well. So that means she lives. So she was born in Rourkela, spent her childhood in Dawlasan in Hyderabad. Both of her parents were writers and she went abroad for her studies. And now this chapter, it is an excerpt. As you know, what is an excerpt? An excerpt is a small piece taken from a long text, right? So this is an excerpt from her book Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood. And here it says that here she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. So she gives her here a wonderful insight into the situation, that why these children live in such a lives of poverty. And okay, so it starts with, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. So here is a story of a small boy named Sahib. She says that I asked him that, why do you do this? So she says that Sahib is a boy whom I encounter every single day. What he does, he scrounges for gold in the garbage dumps. So there are dumps of garbage, and he keeps scrounging, finding things, he might find something. What something he yearns for? Maybe a rupee or a 10 rupee note, right? So she says that Sahib left his home long ago. It was set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. So that means he is a refugee from Bangladesh. And she says that his home is not a distant memory. So that means that he came here not a long time ago. And Sahib's mother explains that there were many storms which swept away their fields, and that's why they just came here looking for gold in the big city where he now lives, right? So when she asks him, why do you do this? He says that I have nothing else to do. So she says, here it says that I say glibly. Glibly means you often speak some of the things carelessly and you do not actually mean it. So she says, go to school. Then he says that there is no school in his neighborhood, and if they build one, then he's gonna go there. And then she says, what if I start a school, will you come? So he says, he smiles and he says, yes, of course I will. And then a couple of days later, she encounters him again, and he comes up to her and asks, is your school ready? And she says that it takes a long time to build a school. And then she realizes that promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world, because she was embarrassed that she promised him something that was unintentional. She was not going to build a school, and she just said it, right? And then it says that promises like mine, the promises like this, are so many in this bleak world. Bleak means charmless and inhospitable. That does not provide you any hospitality. It's a miserable world. So she says that after months of knowing him, I asked his name, and he said that his name was Sahib Alam. And she says that I wonder if he knows that the meaning of his name is the Lord of the Universe. So if he comes to know that, so it might be difficult for him to actually realize that it is any true. And she says that unaware of what his name represents, he just roams with his friends. And she says that as the months have passed by, so she recognizes each of them. So to one of the boys, she asks that, why aren't you wearing chappals? So he says that his mother didn't bring him down from the bring it down from the shelf so that he could wear chappals. And the other one says that even if she does, even if she had given him chappals, he would have thrown that away, sorry. So she says, okay. Then she watches another boy, right, who was wearing shoes, but the shoes did not match. So when she comments on that, he just shuffles his legs. It means that he hides one foot with another so that she cannot see the other one, so that she cannot see that the both are actually different. Then one of the boys, he says that I want shoes. So the writer says that traveling across the country, she had seen children who walk barefoot in the cities or village roads. So some people say, so she gives explanation behind this. So she says that some people say that it is not lack of money but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. Some people say that, I mean, they have money, they can afford wearing, I mean, chappals or maybe some kind of footwear, but they do not wear it to portray or to tell the others that we are poor, so that others can actually help them. So then the writer says, I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. Then she says that I wonder that there could be other facts as well, that this is just an excuse for us. For us means the privileged people who say this. This is just an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. Perpetual means something that never ends or changes. So she says that an excuse to explain away, so that we are just taking our eyes off from something. And I mean, this is just an excuse to take your eyes off from some serious issue. The serious issue is that they live in a perpetual state of poverty, a state that never changes. So now she tells, she tells about that she remembers the story of a man from Udupi, right? And she says that he told her the story that as a young boy he would go to school past an old temple. So there was an old temple, past that there was a school. He would go to that school, and in the temple his father was the priest, and he says that he would stop for a short time at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. And then she says that 30 years later she visits the same town, and which was now drowned in an air of desolation. That means the town was completely destructed, right? It turned out into an emptiness, or it has faced some kind of destruction. Now she says, but in the backyard backyard of the temple, there lives a new priest. And she sees that there is a young boy, there are chairs to sit, red and white plastic chairs. And she says that she sees a young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing shoes and socks, arrived panting and threw his bag. So he just came back from school, and he was like panting, and then he threw his bag onto the folding bed. So watching him, she remembered the prayer some other boy of the priest, right? Some other priest's son who had made a prayer to the goddess that when finally he cut the shoes, that that boy, right, who finally got the shoes, he prayed, let me never lose them. So she says that it is like the prayer has been granted, and the young boys who are like sons of priests now wore shoes, right? So it's like that now they can afford it, but previously, some time ago, the sons of priests could not afford a pair of shoes. But many others are like many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remain shoeless. But she says that, but the rag pickers in her neighborhood, now she talks about Sahib and his friends, they remain barefoot. So she wants shoes for them as well. Now rag pickers means the people who collect rags. It could be like old or torn clothes or some other accessories, shoes maybe, right? Yeah. So she says that her acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads her to Simapuri. Simapuri is a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it. So it says metaphorically. Metaphorically means not literally, symbolically. Why it says yet miles away from it? Simapuri is on the outskirts of Delhi, periphery of Delhi. So why she says miles away from it? Because the life into Delhi is very, the life and opportunities in Delhi, and then there is Simapuri, which is complete wilderness. That means which is an area where there are no opportunities, but here in Delhi there are, right? So yeah, so she says yet miles away from it. In development wise and in terms of opportunity or everything, Simapuri has nothing to offer them. So those who live here are squatters. Squatter means people who have no, people who acquire some land but who have no legal right over the land. Okay, so squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. So in the 1971, we know that there was a war, and Pakistan attacked Bangladesh, and there was actually a genocide, very shocking. And in those times, so many people from Bangladesh actually took refuge in India, and they have been here since. So she says that they came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Sahib's family is among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. Wilderness is like a neglected or abandoned area, but then she says it still is, that right now is like a neglected area, but it is no longer empty. And structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin. So it's like they have made their homes with just mud, structures of mud with roofs of tin, either tin or tarpaulin. Tarpaulin is a material which is a kind of flexible sheet which is waterproof. So many a times it is used to make sheds. Many times it's used to make sheds which are like outside, sometimes too for the cattle. Yeah, sheds like that. Devoid of sewage. It does not have any sewage, drainage or running water. Live 10,000 rag pickers. Now it says they have lived here like for more than 30 years. They have lived here without an identity, without an identity, they do not have any. Why it says without an identity? Because they have not given any legal, I mean, like, you live in a country, you have a passport, you you can say that I am citizen of this country, right? But these people cannot, right? um, Without an identity, without permits, they have not even given the permit. So when you go to a country which is not of your own origin, then you are known as immigrants, right? So they have not even got the immigrant status, they have no permit to stay here, but they have ration cards that get their names on voters list. So because of ration cards, they get their names, they can vote. So it enables them to buy grain. So that's only important. Food is more important for survival than an identity. So they do not care for any identity, they just care for if they get food to actually feed themselves. So one of the women, which was actually wearing a very old and torn saris, she says that if at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. So when they were back in their fields, here it says problem. So 1971 there was a war, but here in the story the women explains that they came because there were so many storms and floods into their lands. So she says that if the land where they lived, they had the identity, but the land gave them no food. So she says that it's far better to live here without an identity, but a land which at least provides them food so that they do not go to bed empty stomach. So she says that that's more important to them. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents and become their transition. So she says that wherever they think there could be an arrangement for the food, they just go there and pitch their homes. Now it says that through the years, as the years have passed by, so the rag picking has become a fine art. So now it says garbage to them is gold. It emphasizes on the importance. So it is like a daily bread, a roof over their heads. So garbage, when they scrounge into the garbage, so they actually find so many things that helps them to keep the roof over their head. So it said that it provides them, it is their daily bread. Now it says even if it is a leaking roof, even if the roof is leaking, but still it's a roof. Now she says that but for a child it's even more. Now Sahib says that I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note. And while he was saying this, he was just so excited, his eyes lightened up. So she says that when there is a possibility that you can find a silver coin into the garbage, so what you do, what would you do if there is a possibility? You will keep searching, right? Because why? Because there is hope for finding more. So that's why she says that garbage has different meaning to the children to what it is to these kids. So she says that for these kids it is wrapped in wonder, while for elder it is a means of survival. So she says that one morning in the winter she saw him and he was actually watching a tennis game, and then he tells her that he likes the game, and then he tells her that he goes inside, the gatekeeper allows him to go inside, and when no one is around, and he actually allows him to even use the swing. So Now she sees that Sahib is also watching some tennis shoes, and she watches it, and he explains that someone gave it to him. So she thinks, she watches the shoes, there was a hole in one of the shoe, and then she thinks that it must be discarded from some rich kid, which who actually refused to wear the shoes because it had a hole in it. But for him, even the shoes with hole is also like a dream come true. Now she says that another morning, when she sees him, he is on the way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister, and he tells her that he now works for the tea stall down the road. And then he says that either he's paid 800 rupees in all his meals. And now she says that he has, I mean, previously he has that carefree look, and I mean, into his eyes, but she says that he no longer has that thing. And she says that the steel canister is too heavy for him, while that plastic bag was like very easy for him to carry over his shoulders. And then she says that the bag was his, but the canister belongs to the tea stall guy for the tea shop. Now she says that Sahib is no longer his own master. I mean, when he was scrounging through the garbage, he used to do things for his own, right? But now she works for someone else. And that is how this part of the story, Sahib's story, ends. Now, some questions for this. It's like, what is Sahib looking for in the garbage dumps? You know it. A rupee, or maybe a 10 rupee note? Where is he and where he has come from? He is in Simapuri, and he has come from where? Dhaka, Bangladesh. What explanations does the author offer for the children not wearing footwear? So there were two explanations. One is that it's not lack of poverty, it's it's not lack of poverty, but it is more like a tradition to portray, or to tell people that they are poor. But she says the second explanation is, it is like a perpetual state of poverty, which is not changing. It is just like that. I mean, they cannot afford it. Is Sahib happy working at the tea stall? Explains. So when she says that his face, I see, has lost the carefree look, it signifies that he's not happy, he just works there for the money, right? Now starts another story, which says, I want to drive a car, and it is of Mukesh's story. So Mukesh insists on being his own master. So it ended with Sahib couldn't be his own master. Now it starts with Mukesh, he who wants to be his own master. So he says that he will be a motor mechanic. Now she asks him that does he know anything about the car? So he said that he will learn to drive the car, and his eyes looms like a mirage. Looms means it appears, his dream looms like a mirage. That means his dream is like that big into his eyes that he thinks it is just like some time away. Amidst the dust of streets that fill his town, Firozabad. So he is from Firozabad. Firozabad is famous for bangles. So it says that every other family in Firozabad is making bangles. They do nothing but bangle making. So it is India's center of glass blowing. So almost all of the country's bangles are made there. So she says that almost all of the families have spent like generations. They just work around furnaces, they weld the glass, make bangles for women, for almost all of the women in the land, it seems. Now she says that Mukesh's family is among them. So she also emphasizes that none of them have any idea that it is illegal for children like him to work in the glass furnaces at high temperatures, with high temperatures, in dingy cells. Dingy means unclean, dark cells. Cell is like a small place, right? A small room, in dingy cells without air and light. So there is no air, there is no light. That the law, if enforced, could get him and all those 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces. So she says if the law is enforced in such a situation, all of these 20,000 children would be out of the furnace actually, where they slug their daylight hours. Slug is like work hard on something really hard, often losing the brightness of their eyes. So because they work into the dark and dusty environment around the furnace, they actually lose their eyesight. I mean, even before they have become adults. Now she says that Mukesh offers to take her to his home, and which he says that is being rebuilt. So she describes the area. She says that they were walking down stinking lanes. The lanes were stinky, creating really strong smell, choked with garbage. We see it very often that whenever there are like lanes, lanes in the streets, they are generally choked with garbage. Past homes, but that's not the problem of the developed areas, but yeah, into the rural areas or suburban areas, it's a great issue. So past homes that remain hovels. Hovels are like something which is very simply constructed, and generally it's kind of an open shed kind of thing. It is generally made for like keeping cattle or storing grain as well. So hovels with crumbling walls. Crumbling means shaking. And wobbly doors means that does not go around smoothly. It's like just there, and you just keep kicking, and then it's like suddenly open. And I mean, it's not smooth, it does not open and shut smoothly. No windows, crowded with families of humans and animals coexisting in a primeval state. Primeval state means when we talk about the time of the earliest times, very ancient times. He stops at the door of one such house, bangs a wobbly iron door with his foot, and then he pushes it open with his foot. Then she says that they enter a half-built shack. Shack is a roughly built hut. In one part of it, thatched with dead grass. So thatch is a roof which is made from hay actually. Yeah, hay, straw, right? Yeah, with dead grass. Yeah, is a firewood stove over which sits a large vessel. So she says what she sees there is a large pot where in the large vessel there are sizzling spinach leaves, and on the ground in large aluminum platters. Platters is a large dish, large plate generally used to serve. So are more chopped vegetables. There are chopped vegetables into the platter, and on the vessel there is a sizzling spinach leaves, right? Now she says that a frail young woman is cooking the evening meal for the whole family. Frail means a very weak woman. Through eyes filled with smoke, she smiles. So she is the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. not much older, like she's like very young. Now she has begun to command respect as the bahu. Now daughter-in-law, which is in charge of three men, her Mukesh's brother and their father, right? So whenever Mukesh's father comes, what she does is she gently withdraws behind the broken wall and brings her veil closer to her face. So this is like a custom in India, so that the daughters-in-law must veil their elders. Yeah, male elders. Yeah, I forgot male elders. Yeah. But in most of the in so many cases, it's not just the male elders. It's like almost all elders, even the women elders, female elders as well. Okay, now it says that in this case the elder is an impoverished Bengal maker. So impoverished means someone who does not have enough strength. So Mukesh's father is an strengthless Bengal maker, and she says that despite, I mean, he has worked for long years. First he was a tailor and then he worked as a Bengal maker, and he has failed to renovate a house and send his two sons to the school, but he had managed to teach them is the art of making bangles, right? Now Mukesh's grandmother says that it is his karam, his destiny. Now she has watched her husband go blind, right, with the dust of polishing the glass of bangles. So she asks that can a God-given lineage ever be broken? So it's like God has put them into this descent. So it just passes from one to another, and there have been like generations into the same thing. Now she says that will it ever break? So she says that born in the caste of Bengal makers, they have seen nothing but the bangles in the house, in the yard, in every other house, every other yard, every street in Firozabad. So they say that there is just bangles of almost all of the colors everywhere, all of the colors, like any color a rainbow could ever have, all of the colors, the bangles of all of those colors are there. So now, okay, where were we? So she says that, and in the dark hutments means even the smaller version of huts. I mean, so small that you cannot even call it a hut. And in the dark hutments next to the lines of flames of flickering oil lamps. So the oil lamps are flickering, and because of that it hurts their eyesight. So she says that sit boys and girls with their fathers and mothers. So they sit together with their parents, and they all are doing just the same thing, welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. Now she says that the eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to the light outside. So she says that is the reason why they often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. Now she talks about Savita. She is a young girl in a dull pink dress, and who is sitting along an elderly woman, and she is soldering the pieces of glass. So she says that her hands move mechanically, like there is a tongs of machines, so her hands move like that, right? So she says that I wonder if she knows the sanctity of the bangle. Sanctity is the holiness, the sacred thing, why bangles are important. So she says that I wonder if she knows that the bangles that she is helping to make, does she know the sanctity of the bangle? And then she talks about that it symbolizes, now she talks about bangles, that it symbolizes an Indian woman's suhag. Suhag means her husband, the sacredness of marriage, right? So she says that it will dawn on her suddenly one day. I mean, there would be that, that sacredness, the brightness, that morning will come upon her someday. But when her head is draped with red veil, drape means to cover her up, when her head will have that red veil, and her hands will be dyed with the henna, and the red bangles rolled onto her wrist. Now she says that she will become a bride. Now she talks that like the old woman who is sitting beside her, but she was once a bride many years ago. Then she says that but there is no no light in her eyes, in the eyes of that old woman. Now the old woman says that she has not even enjoyed one full meal in her entire lifetime, and her husband says that all he could manage throughout the years of labor, all he could manage was to make a house for the family to live in. So it was still an accomplishment, because many amongst them have not even managed to make a house of their own. So this was actually, hearing him, one could wonder that if was kind of an achievement, right? So he has a roof over his head, right? So it seems like an achievement. So so it says like it is the same story in all of those homes. The young men echo the lament of their elders. Lament is like a grief situation, expression of grief which their elders have. So she says that not anything, little has moved with time. So in Firozabad, so years of mind-numbing toil. Mind-numbing means when you think about some situation, you just cannot actually think about, you cannot feel anything but that particular situation. Toil means when someone works very hard and repeatedly for a long time. So because of years of that hard work, right, it has killed all of their initiative and ability to dream. So she asks, why not organize yourselves into a cooperative? So she says that she asked a group of young men who have fallen into the vicious circle of middlemen. Vicious means very dangerous or immoral. An immoral circle of middlemen who trap their fathers and forefathers. So one of them says that even if we get organized, we are the ones who would be hauled up by the police. Hauled means pulled up by the police, beaten and dragged to jail for doing something illegal. So they would say that you're doing something illegal, and so there was no leader among them who could actually help them see things differently. So she says that the fathers are as tired as they are. So now she says that they talk endlessly in a spiral that moves from poverty to apathy to greed to injustice. Poverty means the situation in which they are and lack of money. Now the spiral is poverty to apathy. Now they talk, now the thing is apathy. Apathy is that there is no interest or enthusiasm into actually making the change. Now they talk about greed, that even if we try to do so, there would be bureaucrats or other middlemen who are greedy people who would actually stop them. And then they talk about injustice. So they just keep talking in these circles. They talk about poverty, then they talk about apathy, then they talk about greed, then they talk about injustice. But they are just caught in a web. So there has to be a leader, right, who could actually bring them out of it. Yeah, that's what can happen. So she says, listening to them, I see two distinct worlds. One of the family caught in the web of poverty, burdened by the stigma of caste. So some of them, many of them actually think that they have born in the caste of bangle makers, so this is what they can do, they cannot do anything else. And the other, she says, that are the vicious circle of sahukars. Now she talks about the people because of whom they are in such a situation. Sahukars, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of the law, the bureaucrats, and the politicians, right? So because of these people, the situation, even, I mean, there is no initiative, even these people actually exploit them even further. So together they've imposed the baggage on the child that he cannot put down. So the very little kids are actually carrying a baggage that are imposed by these people. Okay, and before he is aware, he accepts it naturally as his father. So now she says that to do anything else, if they want to do anything else, would mean to dare, and daring is not part of their growing up, of his growing up. So it is sad. When I sense a flash of it in Mukesh, I am cheered. So she is happy seeing what, that he says that I want to be motor mechanic. He repeats, and he says that he will go to garage and learn. But the garage, she says that the garage is long way from his home. Then he says I will walk, and then she asks him that do you also dream of flying a plane? And then he says embarrassed, he says no. I mean, she says embarrassed, yet not there is an embarrassment that has not yet turned into regret. So she says if he can dream of a mechanic, then why not he can dream of flying a plane. So he is embarrassed of not knowing this. He is not in a mode of, I mean, after some time the embarrassment actually turns into a regret of, oh, I don't know this, I don't know about this, so this also exists in this world, kind of that feeling. And then he says she says he's content to dream of cars that he sees hurtling down the streets of his town, that he is happy seeing the cars that are hurtling means running very fast down the streets of his town. Now she says few airplanes fly over Firozabad. So what does that mean? Few, there are two words, few and a few. If we say a few planes fly over Firozabad, that means some. I mean, the number is less, very less, but the word is actually positive, at least countable. I mean, a few means something positive. It is so less, but thank God it is there. Okay, when we say few is negative. Few means almost none. I mean, almost zero. So almost no plane. It means saying almost no plane fly over Firozabad. Okay, so let's go to the, I'm sorry, I'm very used to, while explanation, I'm very used to saying he over and over and over. I'm sorry for that. Now, what makes the city of Firozabad famous? Bangles. Mentioned the Hazars are working in the glass bangles industry. You know it. How is Mukesh? Because of the eyesight, it gets weak, right? And it's not good. That's why it's not good. Yeah. How is Mukesh's attitude to his situation different from that of his family? Because he is hoping that his future would be actually better, but the others have no hope. They have simply accepted it that we are bangle makers and that's all we will be doing for the rest of our lives. What could be some of the reasons for the migration of people from villages to cities? Oh, good question. I think, okay, you can write whatever you want, whatever you think could be a reason. I think it is job opportunities, it could be lifestyle, it could be, oh, it could be reasons of migration. It could be the opportunities to grow, right? So there are so many things likewise that you can write and explain. Well, if it would have been an opposite question, like why do people move from towns, cities to villages? Yeah, I can say, yeah, because they can get fresh air and so many things. Okay, well, nothing. Yeah. Would you agree that promises made to poor children are rarely kept? Yes, exactly. I mean, we do it not on purpose, but yeah, it happens. Uh, I remember once I was in college and I used to go to an ashram. It was a Pingalwada actually, and I met a girl there. Nancy was her name. She was 6 at that time. So when I saw her for the first time, and so um, I we just got so close, right? I used to go there to teach them, and they were so excited to actually learn, and it was a great time. So once she asked me that would I take her to my home, and I said, yeah, yes, yes, obviously, right? Why would I say no? I said yes, and I thought like saying something which is not actually meant, but she obviously assumed that I will do so. So she missed me after I left the place after my college, and I always feel so bad about it. I couldn't do anything about it. I really wanted to adopt the child, but I hardly actually uh, could take care of myself in those days. So adopting a child was a big thing. Besides, my dad actually, he didn't want me to even go to the place again, so that he he wanted me to, lead a life which had like just get married, have kids, do not think in this area, this is like too social kind of thing. But I feel bad to this day. Besides, adoption is not that easy process. It just takes a lot. Why do you think this happens to the incidents narrated in the text? Uh, yeah, you can tell us. Already covered. What forces conspire to keep the workers in the bangle industry Firozabad in poverty? So you can tell everyone, like sahukars, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of the law, bureaucrats, and the politicians. Okay, it says, how in your opinion can Mukesh realize his dream? Your opinion, right? But you can say that he works for the bangle making things, right? And he has to work there. So after he's free from there, he can go to the garage and actually and learn. Mention the hazards of working covered. Why should child labor be eliminated, and how? Very good question. I want you to think about it. Why? That these are two questions. Why should it be eliminated? It should be eliminated because when children actually have curiosity, so they must be provided with the opportunities to explore everything life has to offer, so that they can willfully choose their own direction of happiness, what they want out of their lives, instead of imposing something to them. They should have options to choose. And how? So how is like we can enforce the laws, like I mean, like she talks about in this particular story, that if the law is enforced correctly, so we can make sure that the law is enforced and that these children have schools to go, right? That's all. Yeah. Okay, that's all for the story. So end of the story, we also have some of these what do we say, literary devices, but we gonna cover the literary devices in a completely separate video, so that you don't have to go through all of the videos to go just through the literary devices. So I will make it separate. Okay, and that's all for today, and thank you so much for your time and patience. Bye bye, see you in the next video.